I have very limited experience with the Mega Man franchise. They always interested me, especially as a kid. I remember trying them and being completely turned off by their difficulty. They were really fucking hard platformers. As a kid, I played the Battle Network series. I never did beat any of them. I did get very close with number 2, but then my GBA decided to die in the middle of saving the game, which then got rid of my save file, and 11-year-old me just didn't want to deal with that bullshit. So, as I say, I don't have so much experience with this franchise, but the games have always interested me. It always seems like my favorite YouTubers just love Mega Man. They always have their favorite games, they're extolling the virtues of the series, and there was always a part of me inside that thought, well, you don't like Mega Man? You're not a real gamer. Gamers like Mega Man. Everybody likes Mega Man. So I decided, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to play through Mega Man 1. Let's see what everybody's talking about. Let's see if I can actually enjoy this. Let's give the game a look. As with most NES games, there's not much story here. Most of you will already know the plot, but I'll quickly run over it anyway. It is the year 20XX, where robots are all over the damn place. Dr. Light and Dr. Wily are scientists specializing in robotics. Wily gets jealous of Light's genius and the respect society gives him, so he steals 6 of Light's robots: Gutsman, Cutman, Iceman, Electman, Fireman, and Bombman, who run amok and start attacking humans. Dr. Light sends out one of his robots, Megaman, to take them out. Megaman has to travel to each of the 6 stages, clearing his way to the Robot Master. When he defeats each Robot Master, Megaman gains their weapon. For example, after defeating Gutsman, Megaman can pick up blocks and throw them at enemies. When Megaman beats Electman, he can turn his gun into a type of lightning gun that attacks forward, above, and below. Easily, the best weapon in the game. After conquering the Robot Masters, Megaman has to take out Dr. Wily himself. This leads the Blue Bomber through 4 Wily stages, each more difficult than the Robot Master stages, with the possible exception of Wily Stage 3. Mega Man first has to conquer the Yellow Devil, one of the most notorious bosses, and one that gave me never-ending frustration. After that, Mega Man faces Cutman and Electman in a rematch, then is attacked by a copy robot, which copies whatever weapon Mega Man is holding. After killing himself, Mega Man takes out CWU-01P, a collection of 7 machines that get progressively faster and faster. Having conquered Wily Stage 3, Mega Man fights his way through the challenges of Wily Stage 4, including a rematch with the rest of the Robot Masters. Then there's only Wily left, who has 2 phases, a few flames and a couple of zaps. Wily is down for the count. Mega Man stares at him, then decides to go home. The credits roll, telling us we have temporary peace. Knowing that there are 7 more games in the series alone, it's temporary indeed. So that's the story. Certainly serviceable enough for an NES title. But no one plays Mega Man for the story. The gameplay is where this title shines. Well, for the most part. So this is where I face the first dilemma when I'm reviewing this game. And Mega Man is, without a doubt, a classic game. It was developed very early on in the timeline in the development of video games. So there are archaic design features in this game that nowadays we would not find them acceptable. They would be laughed out of any video game that we play. But they were part and parcel for the time. Other games had this. So what do? How do you review that, taking into account its time, but also playing it as a modern gamer? And for this, I look to the field of classical literature as a way to think about this issue. Think about Homer. Homer, earliest Greek poet that we have, he is repetitious and boring, and it takes fucking forever for the Trojans to get to the Greek ships to burn them down, and then they don't even do it anyway. 6 books I had to read of that. But 2,800 years after it was written down, people are still talking about it, still reading it, still finding new things in Homer. They're still enjoying it as modern people. So with that in mind, I think back to how I interpret Homer and to how I talk about Homer, which is complain about the things that aren't fun, realizing the fact that it's a product of its time and taking that into account of my evaluation, but focusing on me as a reader, or in this case, a player. Am I having a good time? Why am I having a good time? And why am I not having a good time? The core of Mega Man's gameplay is simple: jumping and shooting. Shooting allows you to clear enemies who obstruct your path. Jumping both clears platforming sections, getting you to the end of the stage, and allows you to aim your gun. Megaman's initial gun can only hit what's in front of him, though Electman's weapon and Fireman's weapon has some spread, and the bombs from Bombman kill enemies in a different way from a gun, more like a bomb that you throw. But killing enemies might not even be the easiest path. Some of them, like these assholes, are better frozen in place so that you can escape without taking damage. It's this kind of design that makes the player constantly ask themselves, what is the best way to get out of this situation? And I like that. This is a game about slowing down, observing your surroundings, noticing patterns, and trying to conquer the challenges thrown at you again and again until you get it right. And when I say again and again, I mean it. If you're like me and you haven't played a Mega Man game before, you will die a lot. Just starting up, I got 2 game overs before I made it to the boss, which I could only conquer by the grace of God Almighty. But in a way, that's not a complaint, and this is an essential part of the core gameplay loop. Now, don't get me wrong, almost every time I died, an expletive left my mouth, and my cat was probably wondering why I was cursing every 10 seconds. But each time, you try it a bit differently, and you make it farther into the stage. What 5 minutes ago seemed like an unsurmountable challenge now strikes the player as a natural maneuver to perform, as you hightail it back to the challenge that's currently giving you problems. Now, hightailing it back, you might ask. The main reason why you get so good at the earlier parts of the stages is the way the live system works. At the beginning of the game, Mega Man has 3 lives. If you lose a life, you'll be sent back to the closest checkpoint, normally about halfway through the stage or right before a boss. I sometimes found myself hoping not to beat the stage, but just to get to the next checkpoint on my current life, so that I could progress easier with my next life. Respawning will also restore your health, although not your sub-weapon power. If you lose all of your lives, get a game over, you are sent to the beginning of the stage, life and sub-weapons refilled. For the most part, this system works fine. None of the 6 Robot Master stages were annoying enough that I felt that the system was a hindrance, although my tune does start to change near the end, which I will get into a bit later. Now, it's difficult to say whether or not Mega Man is a linear game. I'm sure you guys are already aware, each boss has a weakness to another boss's weapon. Electman is weak to Cutman's weapon, and Iceman is weak to Electman's weapon. This is a cool system, and it makes the Robot Master fights, for the most part, piss easy. You can start with any boss you want. I started with Gutsman, for example. But after that, if you want to play optimally, you'll follow the weakness cycle. This system does add some replayability, as you can take on the masters in any order you want, optimally or not, but as I said in my review of Super Mario RPG, I tend to maximize efficiency in games, so if I ever go back to this game, I'll probably follow the cycle again. The only thing that would change is the boss that I would start out with. The Robot Master stages are fun, difficult but fair for the most part. I could, attempt by attempt, feel myself getting better at the game, which is an addicting feeling. I hear the later games have even better designs than these in the first game, so I'm looking forward to trying them out in the future. I don't exactly feel the same way about Wily's stages. The actual levels are fine. There's some bullshit enemy placement, and this fire puzzle always gave me trouble, but you learn how to surpass the challenges and you get to the boss. But it's the bosses I have a problem with. Yellow Devil is a bastard, and I outright cheered when I finally beat him. He has a recognizable pattern, it's definitely learnable, but he does so much damage and you do so little, even with his weakness. I have no problem admitting that I made use of the pause glitch to inflict extra damage, though I gave it multiple legitimate attempts first, and this is in no way an easy way to beat him, it just makes it more manageable, in my opinion. The next 2 Wily stages are fine, but Wily Stage 4 is bullshit. Complete bullshit. Fighting 4 bosses in quick succession with no healing is difficult. I never could beat Fireman without taking a pot shot, usually leaving me with a small amount of health. While I can take care of Iceman with no damage, I have to get really lucky with Gutsman to take a hit. But I finally do it. 3 lives, I fight my way through the Robot Masters with 3 pips of health remaining. Wily is just ahead. And while I know that my first attempt will obviously be in failure, I will have 2 attempts to face Wily with full health. So here is where I face the second dilemma in playing Mega Man. You see, I'm playing on the Wii U Virtual Console, and the Virtual Console has the feature of the save state. Now, up to this point, I had only used the save state to be able to put the game down, to go eat dinner, or to go hang out with some of my friends. I can't be playing this all in one sitting with my schedule. But now, I have the temptation. On the one hand, I can just save the state here, create a restore point, and then I can keep battling Wily again and again and again, practicing the stage until I finally beat him. Or I can play the game as it was originally intended. I can go and die to Wily, and then go back to the beginning of the stage, if I don't have any lives, and do the gauntlet again. And then go fight Wily again. And then lose, and then go all the way to the beginning. And keep doing that loop until I win. Normally, I try to keep that original design in mind when I'm playing video games, particularly classic ones, as I'm trying to get to the original experience and evaluate the game on its own merits. But I also want to have a good time when I'm playing video games. So I made the save state, and I have to say that it dramatically improved the experience. This gave me an easy way to try Wily again and again, but the fact that I have to use the feature of an emulator to have a good time points to, in my opinion, a fundamental flaw of this game's design. Setting the player back to the beginning of a long stage can be okay. I praised it before in the Robot Master levels because it forces you to master the mechanics of the game. But there is a fine line between frustrating fun that drives me forward and gives a large rush of triumph when I finally conquer the challenge, and a debilitating feeling of this is bullshit. The difference lies in how much challenge you have to get through just to get the same feeling of triumph. Previously, the player went through a large amount of challenge to get to a Robot Master and kill him. Finishing the battle was the end of the stage, and that felt great. Now, the gauntlet is easier than beating the boss for the first time, granted, since you've already beaten the bosses, but this is counterbalanced by the need to maintain your health. Earlier, when I fought Fireman, I took a lot of damage, but that was fine, the stage is done. Now, I have to fight 2 more bosses, which adds a lot of challenge to the gauntlet as a whole. And that's fine! But end the stage there! Restore my health, my sub-weapons, and most importantly, give me a permanent checkpoint before Dr. Wily. If you die against Wily, you'll start in front of him, but only so long as you have lives. If you get a game over, you have to do the gauntlet all over again, and that is exhausting. It's a problem easily fixed, as demonstrated by the judicious use of the save state, and the feeling of triumph is not lessened in the least. I exulted in joy when I beat this game. It was an amazing feeling. But this save state use allows me to keep practicing Wily's boss battle until I beat him. If you make that difficult, then the game just becomes more frustrating. It doesn't become any more fun. That's why, to me, this is a fundamental design flaw. With all of that being said, Mega Man was a fantastic experience. I finally beat this monster of a game. A monster I built up in my head. The game is actually approachable if you're willing to die and keep pressing on. But the feeling of triumph when I finally finished this game, this emblem of difficulty and hardcore gaming, it was a magnificent feeling. And I am so glad that I played this. All I can say is that I'm looking forward to playing Mega Man 2. I won't be playing it right now. I find that when I finish games, I like to move on to a different genre. Maybe I'll go back to the RPG genre. Maybe I'll look at a strategy game. I have a couple of ideas in mind. We'll see what I do. But Mega Man 2 is certainly it's in the foreseeable future. It's coming up, and I am very much looking forward to that. And obviously, you guys will get to see when I finally play it and what I think of it. But Mega Man 1 was a great game. So glad I played it, and you should play it too if you haven't already.